Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Welcome to another episode of Love and Abuse. All the information on the show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being, and always pick your battles wisely. Another battle you may have to deal with, or some people listening might have to deal with, are the parents of the person they care about that are being emotionally abusive. And so if you're with somebody or you know somebody that has been doing emotionally abusive behavior and their parents have been involved in your life in some way, typically the romantic relationship, this is what happens. You'll have somebody that has parents that get involved in your life, and sometimes that involvement is supportive of both of you and supportive of you and supportive of their child. And sometimes it's only supportive of their child. And this is where I think it's important to be aware that there are parents out there that their only concern is their child and not you. And not only that, if their child is unhappy by anything that you do, you will hear about it and you will be blamed for it. So that's who I'm talking about today. Somebody wrote to me and she said that she's been listening and she's bouncing in and out of the not too sure phase. She said, I left and I'm getting my own house and we're doing counseling, but we're not going to counseling together yet. And this message might be a little old, so I'm not sure if they're doing that together yet or not. That's a whole different story when you go to counseling together. I do believe in counseling apart, and I do believe that there needs to be a lot of healing before you do counseling together, but counseling together can also work. But this is where she is right now. She said, I'm reaching out to you because I think I am the victim, and sometimes I have moments where I think I'm the abuser, but I don't necessarily think I am. So she is going through that phase that a lot of people go through. Am I being the abusive one? Am I doing the hurtful behavior? Maybe it is me. Maybe it is me. And what I found is that the person who often reflects if they're doing abusive behavior or not, they're usually not the abusive person. They're usually not doing hurtful behavior, at least not on purpose or even unintentionally. They're usually the victim of hurtful behavior. And so this is what I see often, is that the abuser doesn't say to themselves, I wonder if I'm being abusive. Maybe I should look at that. They don't reflect on that until they start healing. But the victim who says, well, maybe I'm the abuser. Maybe that person's right about me. Or maybe I'm just doing behaviors that are hurtful and I don't even realize it and I got to stop. Almost always I see this in especially couples where one person is the abusive person and the other person is the victim, and the victim thinks that they're the abuser. They themselves are the abuser. And in my experience, 99 out of 100 times, the victim, the one who reflects, the one who says, well, maybe it's me, and they ask themselves, what am I doing that's causing hurt to this person? And then they tell themselves, maybe I should stop doing that. They have this conversation, this introspective conversation about their own behavior and want to change that behavior. So again, this is what I see 99% of the time when somebody is reflecting on their own behavior because they don't want to hurt the person they're with. Usually they're not the abusive person. Doesn't mean they're not acting or reacting abusively. There is something called reactive abuse where you have to act in a way that they act in order to be heard, in order to get your needs met. And I have episodes on that too. I have one called reactive abuse. So you just look that up at loveandabuse.com. But in this case, or at least in what I'm talking about today, I'm going to say that you're probably not the abusive person. You may have had times that you couldn't get your needs met, that you couldn't, or you didn't feel like you were being heard, And so what you ended up doing was doing behaviors that might be considered abusive by somebody who would want to make you think you are, if that makes sense. So I'm going to finish this letter. She said that I spoke to my family and friends and even his family and friends, and I didn't do it to completely drag him down, but to be fair to the situation. He is aware that I have spoken to people and his parents. He is aware that I have spoken to people and his parents are very upset with me for leaving him and his kids. Now, here we go. This is where it gets into the parents getting involved. She said that his parents are very upset with her for leaving him and his kids. And they have separate kids, but the parents said you abandoned him and you're not being loyal for saying the things that she said, and she broke trust and etc. And it was she said it was telling the truth that I broke the trust. So there are two things going on here. One, you're speaking to his friends and family. This is where they might be saying you broke the trust. Now, I'm not saying they're the good guys here. I'm saying that when you are dealing with something, you're trying to figure it out. Somebody is in your life being hurtful or abusive, or you're trying to figure out if they are being hurtful or abusive. If you decide to talk to their family and their friends, then you might be crossing a line. You might be crossing a line because what you're doing is involving people that care about him and he care about in a way that they weren't involved before. So you might have actually inadvertently invited them into the abuse cycle. Not that they're being abused, but in a way that makes him look bad, even if you say things that are nice. Even if you say, I'm just trying to understand. Because what ends up happening is they start forming a picture, the picture that you paint, your side of it, and you also start creating a rift between you and him, and a rift between you and his parents, and a rift between him and his friends, and all this stuff is happening. And what you end up doing is possibly isolating him, making him feel like a target. So I know it sounds like I'm picking on you right now, but I want you to be aware that when you involve his confidants, his family, his friends, what it's doing is pulling them into a personal situation that they really probably shouldn't be a part of. And when they're a part of it, now, what does that mean? Does that mean they have to pick sides? It really puts his family and friends in a difficult situation. So again, I'm not picking on you, but I think you do have to be very careful about doing that and rely on your own confidants and your own family and friends, your own therapist, and keep the issues and the challenges that you're having with the people that you are closest to. Now, if you're close to his family, that's a different story. And if you're close to his friends, that's a different story. If you have mutual friends and your family or his family is like your family, it's a different story. But if you're going outside your own bonds and you're involving other people, then it kind of sets him up to fail. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Now, there's the other side of this, where his parents got involved. Whether you involve them or not, it doesn't matter, because at least the point I'm going to make about the abandonment, like his parents said, you abandoned him. That to me is a guilt trip and what I would consider emotionally abusive. And then you go on to say, and I haven't even read this far yet, that his dad is a narcissistic alcoholic and he thinks he's righteous and he's also manipulative, and his wife is happy to tolerate all that. I'm sure she's not happy, but I'm sure she does. I'm sure she's in a situation that is very difficult for her, and who knows what's going on in their life. But because his dad is like that, that tells me that that family has passed down certain behaviors that maybe your partner does. He had to get them from somewhere. Either he learned them through coping mechanisms that he had to develop when he was a kid, or he learned them directly through just absorbing, the role model that he is learning from, his dad, his mom. And so he took those behaviors into your relationship, and that's what you experienced. And now you have parents or a mom or a dad that says, you abandoned our kid. You're a bad wife. You did this to our son. Well, first of all, their investment, yes, will be in their son. If you had a close family connection with them, which it doesn't sound like you did, but that doesn't surprise me coming from the narcissist or the toxic situation they're in. That doesn't surprise me what you're telling me. But it's important to remember that you shouldn't take too much of this stuff personally, because it sounds like his family has a lot of toxic elements in it as well. And even though it might be difficult not to take it personally, but the idea is that when somebody is displaying these qualities and these behaviors, then you got to consider the source. And so I hope that when they say, hey, you abandon him, that's definitely a guilt trip. And that's definitely made to make you feel bad. And if you feel bad, they get to keep their power over you. And as long as you are in a powerless position, then they get to manipulate or control you. And they want what's best for their son, I'm assuming, but it still doesn't give them the right to guilt you and try to control or manipulate you or anything like that. Now, going back to what I said about involving other people beyond your own bonds, you may have inadvertently invited some of this hurtful behavior. And I'm very careful when I say this. I'm not saying that you deserved any abusive behavior, but I'm saying that when you involved other people, what it did was open up your circle of influence a little bit larger and brought in more toxic people. And that might happen. If you invite more people into this personal situation that you're in, and those people are toxic, this is what happens, is you can have something like this manifest, and suddenly you're in a worse situation because now you have more sources of toxic behavior, and now you have to deal with that as well. Now, in general, I really don't like when a partner's parents get involved in someone's relationships. I mean, it's rare that they should get involved unless they're getting involved with the victim in a way that supports the victim of any type of abusive relationship. So if, let's just say that his parents knew that you were being victimized and they came in and helped you, that would be a different story. Or if he was being victimized and you were the abuser, which probably they think, and then they're going to support him because he's probably feeding them information that you're doing all this bad stuff. So they may think they're doing the right thing by supporting their child, but the problem is they use the word, you abandon him. And when I hear that, I know there's some manipulation involved there. So that's not necessarily a good thing. It's a toxic behavior that I don't like to see. Now, in your letter, you said that his parents also said you weren't being loyal. And they may have said that because you were telling them private information about your relationship to them. That could be what they meant. And I'm not giving them any credit. I'm not saying that they're right or you're wrong. I'm saying that that's probably where that comes from. But your response to that was, it made me upset because being loyal doesn't mean I need to stay and deal with all the ear bashings all the time. 100%, you do not have to stay in an abusive situation, and you do not have to deal with that. And you have every right to say, I'm not going to stay here in this bad relationship. And if you don't want to support me being safe and being in a comfortable situation, if you don't want to support me in that, that's your choice. But I don't feel that I'm being disloyal to an abuser. In fact, you can't be disloyal to an abusive person because the abuser has already been disloyal to you. The loyalty has already ended. It's already been violated. The relationship contract has been broken. As soon as one person hurts the other, you're violating the relationship contract. That's how I look at it. So his disloyalty to you negates any disloyalty to him after that point. That doesn't mean you can do anything you want, but I'm just saying in this circumstance, in this context, this is what I see. I see that his parents are not taking into account his abusive behavior toward you, which they probably don't even believe. So that's something for him to deal with and his parents to deal with. And you just allow them to process it and think about it any way they want. That's their issue. And if they don't like it, they have to work with it. They have to work through it. And if your partner really wants you back in his life, he, in my opinion, is going to defend you with his parents. That doesn't often happen. That's a problem, is because if he doesn't defend you to his parents, then he might be siding with them. That happens too. We have to be careful about that. When you don't have someone on your side, your own partner, not standing up for you, not telling other people to back off, and being the one you can look toward, to trust, to know that they'll be there for you, to feel secure in the relationship, when they're not doing that for you, then you are alone. You are not supported by anyone in the relationship, not even your own partner. So when I see things like that, where a partner is siding with their own family and their own friends, for example, against you, then what ends up happening is isolation. You feel completely isolated, completely unsupported, completely unloved, very alone, and you don't know how to go forward because you have no support system. This is why it's important to keep your bonds, keep your own bonds. Let them keep their bonds. Let them rely on their bonds. So when you have struggles in the relationship, he can go his way, you can go your way, you get your support system, and you just talk about it and you express yourself to those people. Because what it really comes down to is your experience of what's happening anyway. It doesn't matter what his parents think or what he thinks. What matters is how you feel about the situation, what you think about the situation, and do you want to live with this type of behavior from now on? If the behavior never ever changes, would it be okay? The answer is usually no, but I ask that because it's good to reflect upon. If his behavior never ever changes, and he is the way he is from this point on, would you be okay with that? That's my question to people who are trying to figure out what their next step is. Their answer might be something along the lines of, yeah, but they're in therapy and they're working on themselves. And when I hear that, I make sure that the person waiting or hoping or praying that the other person changes, I make sure that that person sets a date and says, if there are no changes by this date, they tell themselves, there are no changes by this date, then I need to make a decision for myself. I need to move on for myself. And you've probably heard me say this 1,000 times, but look at the trend line of the relationship. If you're new, you've never heard this, but if you look at the trend line of your relationship, has it been going up and to the right, like a business making profit and doing well every year, year after year? The trend line is going to go up and to the right. Is your relationship getting better all the time? Not all relationships do. Some steady out. That's great. They level out and they get steady and they're fine. They have some ups and downs, no big deal. How about when the person says they're healing and they're changing and they're going to be a better partner or a better person in general? Is that trend line going up and to the right? Because usually it starts off really low. We are down here and you want to be up to this point, or at least you're telling this person, you want to be up to this point, you got a long way to go. So that means I need to see progress daily. I need to see it and feel it. I need to know that you're doing the work. And the only way to know you're doing the work is if today is better than yesterday. And if you don't do it by every day, you can do it every week. You just look at the past and you say to yourself, the past equals the present equals the future. What happened yesterday will happen today. So if you had a good day yesterday, then perhaps you'll have a good day today and a good day tomorrow. And you look at that progress. You see it as progress. Hey, that was a good day. They said this and it was good and they supported me and they disagreed with me on something, but it didn't turn into a fight. We had a disagreement and we got along still. It all worked out. That's progress. Trend line going up and to the right. But if yesterday was, again, we had a fight about this, or again, they made me feel guilty, or again this, again that, I don't see that as progress. I see that as more of the same. And so this is how I look at what's going to come tomorrow. And the trend of what's been happening is usually an indicator of what will happen. And when somebody says they're healing and working on themselves, that trend line has to go up and to the right. It has to. There may be times where it levels out, but it has to continue going up and to the right. Otherwise, it's not working. You're not seeing changes. You shouldn't think to yourself, I don't know. I don't know if they're changing. You should actually be very confident in the observations you're making. And you see something so strange and so different about them that it's uncharacteristic, and it's almost like they're a different person. That's change. Because who they were isn't who you want to see anymore. You want to see someone different, someone who treats you with kindness and respect and honors your path to happiness, honors the decisions that you make for yourself. And when you disagree, it's okay because you're equal adults and you can say, well, we'll agree to disagree. Or if it's something that involves the whole family, you actually have a conversation about it instead of being made to feel bad or stupid or belittled or bullied or intimidated. All of these things that happen in an abusive relationship. You should feel comfortable going forward knowing that most of the time you are supported and you are loved and you're treated with respect and kindness and so on. Most of the time, that's how it should be. So finishing this letter, she said, I'm very much trying not to be bothered by it, but I'm going to go down the path of figuring out, how do you get around parents? Do I keep the distance? I feel like they want me to apologize to them, and I don't feel like I should do that. And my partner wants to go out and undo what I've said, and none of this is sitting right. And that was the end of the message. And I really appreciate the person who wrote that. I understand you're going through a challenge. So my final answer to you is that if you feel like you did something wrong, you can apologize. If you didn't, maybe you want to own it. Maybe you want to own what you did and you don't feel bad about what you did or what you said. And you are just trying to save the relationship. You're trying to get to the bottom of things. If, however, you feel like maybe you crossed the line about some of the things I said, it's up to you, but you can apologize about that. Like, maybe I shouldn't have told you those things. I should have kept those things to ourselves. It was our own personal stuff, and I shouldn't have involved you. And I'm sorry about that. Doesn't mean you have to apologize for everything, but you can apologize if you want about other things, but not everything. Because sometimes we look at our behaviors and realize, I didn't do anything wrong. And so don't apologize out of the feeling that you are expected to. Apologize because you actually feel like you did something wrong. And it wasn't somebody else convincing you that you did something wrong, but you feel it in yourself. Then that's a good reason to apologize. But if you feel like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. I feel very good about what I did because I was doing it for all the right reasons, and that's it. That's who I am. I feel good about that. Then that's where you are. And that's where you need to be. You own that. This is who I am, and this is where I need to be. And if you have a partner that doesn't want to support that and actually wants you to do things that are against your own values, and you know you didn't do anything wrong, then you have to reconsider that partnership. Because I believe that a partnership, a romantic relationship, should be supporting each other. And if your partner doesn't like what you did and doesn't like what you said, then he has to deal with that. He has to make a decision for himself. If he doesn't want to be with somebody that he can't agree with and doesn't like their values and believes they did something wrong, and you don't believe you did anything wrong, then you might have a disagreement, or at least an ongoing disagreement that you can't get past. And he has every right to make a choice for himself and say, well, I can't deal with that. I can't live with that. You did something wrong, and I don't, you're not apologizing for it. And so I'm going to move on. I just can't live with that. That's not something I want to deal with. That's not something I want to keep in my life. And that's his choice. And I'm not saying that should be his choice. I'm saying it would be great if we could talk about this, figure things out. But it is important that he makes his own choice and doesn't give you grief for yours. This is where it comes down to. This is my bottom line, is that if he doesn't like what you did, if he has a problem with you, that's his problem. He has to deal with that. And if you don't like something he did or his parents did, that's your problem, and you have to deal with that. So you have your own separate lives. You have separate friends. You have separate family. And you're going to deal with your own side of this. So this is how I look at relationships, is when you have a problem with somebody else, you can either complain to them, you can be angry at them, you can do all these things to make them feel bad and show them how wrong they are, or you can just look inward and ask yourself, is this somebody I want to be with? Is this the kind of person I want to be with? If somebody does this to me, is that something I can accept in my life? And he needs to ask the same thing. If he really doesn't like your behavior and he wants you to undo it, and you say, no, I'm comfortable where I am. I'm comfortable with what happened, and you've been hurting me a long time. And I tried to do everything I can to save us and work through this and figure us out and even take responsibility. And I'm doing everything I can. And if you can't see that, and you don't trust me to see that I'm trying to help us, then maybe we disagree about this. I know I simplified this so much. I realize that love is involved, and there's bonding, and there's commitments, and there's other things that we are tied up in our life. But it really does come down to, if you have a problem with something he's doing, then you need to decide for yourself if that's something that you want to tolerate in your life. Just like if he has a problem with something you're doing, then he needs to decide if that's something he wants to tolerate in his life. And I don't mean it should just come down to toleration. I actually look at this as one of the 4 choices. You accept somebody as they are and you stay in the situation. Or you reject who they are and you stay in the situation. Or you accept somebody for who they are and you leave the situation. Or you reject who they are and you leave the situation. And you have to make one choice. You have to make one of those choices. If you accept and you accept who they are and stay in the situation, then you can't complain because you're accepting. This is who they are. I've accepted it. If you reject who they are and you stay in the situation, then what you end up doing is making yourself miserable, because now you reject it, you complain about it, you hope they change, you want them to change, and they won't change, yet you're still there. So you've chosen to stay in a situation that you reject. And if you accept the situation and choose to leave, that's saying, that's who you are, and that's okay, I'll leave you be. But I'm going to go do something else with my life. That could be a direction to go. And then there is rejecting someone and leaving. I can't accept who you are. I want you to change, but there's nothing I can do, and I'm leaving. It's very similar to accepting and leaving, but you're not going to get to that point where you accept who they are. You just reject it. You can't believe that's who they are, and you don't want to accept it, and you can't do anything about it, so you're getting out of there. The healthiest scenario is accepting and staying, or accepting and leaving. That's it. Those are 2 healthy scenarios, because what you're doing is, when you accept and stay, you accept who they are and you're okay with it and you feel good about it. I'm not saying you should. Some behaviors are not acceptable. But if you get to that point where you accept who they are, then you won't find yourself complaining anymore, because that's who they are and you've learned to live with it. That's who they are, and I'm okay with it. A lot of people can't do that. And, this is what happens, is he needs to do the same thing. He needs to accept who you are and be okay with it, because that's when the complaining stops. That's when the arguments stop. That's who they are. I'm not here to change you. That's who you are. It's when we reject who someone is and we stick around. That's when the arguments never end, the abuse never ends, all the bad behaviors that are in a relationship, all the toxic behaviors that are in a relationship that cause continuous problems. That's when it's the worst. So just to answer your question, the person who wrote, she said, I'm trying to figure out about the relationship. How do you get around the parents? If my girlfriend's parents were involved and they kept calling me, or they were giving her a hard time about me, if she didn't stand up for me, I wouldn't want to be around. I wouldn't want to be around a person that doesn't see me as the primary connection and the primary bond in her life. I mean, aside from kids and aside from healthy family and parents and stuff like that. But if my partner is not standing up for me and saying, hey, you need to back off. This is the person I'm married to. This is the person I'm living with. This is the person I've dedicated my life to. And you're just being hurtful. I would expect my partner to stand up for me, or at least ignore them because my partner loves me. That would be my expectation. If she didn't, it would be very hard because now, again, I'd feel isolated. Like I said before, I'd feel alone. And a relationship is not that feeling of alone. A relationship is us. A relationship is us against the world. A relationship is us doing things together, feeling safe in each other's arms or in each other's presence. And when we don't feel safe, we're not really in a relationship. We're not relating. We're not in that space of comfort and respect and security. Where if we don't have that feeling, then we will not achieve maybe satisfaction or happiness. We will not achieve a level of happiness that makes us feel at least okay, if not actually somewhat looking forward to each next day. And I don't want you to be in that space. So when it comes to this person who wrote, how do you get around the parents? You shouldn't have to. If their parents are interfering, the partner should stand up and say, hey, look, get out of my life. This is my personal life. And if your partner's not doing that, then you truly are alone. And I'm not trying to put anyone down if their parents are doing that and you're not staying up for your partner. There's a way to love your partner and ignore the parents and say, look, I can't say anything to them because they won't listen to me, but I love you and I'm with you. And no matter what they say, I'm not leaving you. This is our relationship. And when we have issues, these are our issues. They're not involved. So yeah, there can be situations like that where parents try to meddle and one or both partners are trying to ignore them or trying to calm them down. And there's nothing you can do. Some parents are uncontrollable, like some kids. They're just uncontrollable. Nothing we can do. So we ignore them, or we tell them to back off, or we just block them out of our lives completely. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to just get them away from us, get away from them so you can enjoy your life. So again, I'm not trying to say that, hey, you should stand up and, go against your family or anything like that, because sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's more difficult than that, or a lot of the times it can be difficult. So that's my perspective. Those are my insights and opinions. I hope they help. To the person who wrote, thank you again for writing. I wish you the best with your situation. If you know anyone that can benefit from this, share this with them. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. You can download the workbook today to help you determine if you are in an emotionally abusive relationship. It'll give you tools to pinpoint the specific unhealthy behaviors causing you to leave so many interactions feeling bad. If you're in a difficult relationship and you want to know what your next steps should be, the assessment and the workbook will help you make decisions that are right for you. Visit loveandabuse.com for more information. If you've discovered that you are doing emotionally abusive behavior and you would like to change that about yourself, sign up for the Healed Being program over at healedbeing.com. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant. Because you are. We'll talk again soon.